Please be seated. The court is now back in session. I will hand over the floor to the lead co-lawyers for the civil party to continue her line of questioning. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before the break, we were discussing about how long the disappearances at the ministry continued. And my question now is, did the disappearances continue when Nuon Chea was in charge of the ministry?
I would like to continue on with the response to this question. When Nuon Chea assumed the position in charge of office K33, the issue of the disappearance of forces stopped because before there were subsequent disappearance of some of my colleagues, but ever since he came to this position, there were no more disappearance.
To clarify on this matter, Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to read to the witness an excerpt from his interview with the investigators, document number E3438, and the English ERN is 0037586. The Khmer ERN is 00373436. French ERN 00426433. On this page, the witness was asked the following questions. I quote, "Until when this policy was implemented?" The answer was, "This policy still existed, even though Nuon Chea did not want us to talk about the separation between new and old people, and the disappearance still continued." End of quote. Now, Mr. Q, in your interview with the investigators, you gave this answer, and today you say that when Nuon Chea was in charge, there were no more disappearances. Can you clarify on this point, please?
I can clarify on this point. Nuon Chea, who came to assume responsibility over office K33, there was no more disappearances of forces. But I heard from people outside that there were ongoing disappearances of people in other offices. I heard that people were removed from the place, but in particular in my place, there were no disappearances. And I heard people talk about removal of other people in other offices. That's why I mentioned that when Nuon Chea came in my place, there were no disappearance, and I did not witness the disappearances of other people in other offices, but I heard from others that there were still ongoing removal of people in other places, but I did not witness it by myself. I only heard it from others.
Can you tell us which offices these other people refer to?
ខ្ញុំចាំមិនច្បាស់ទេ
I do not recall that clearly. But in K33, there were offices subordinated to the ministry. Those who liaised with other offices subordinate to the ministry received information concerning the ongoing disappearances of staff members in those offices.
Thank you. I would like to move on to a new topic that my colleague already mentioned. The defrocking of monks. Can you tell us when this happened in your village? The defrocking of monks and the sending of them to work camps.
ខ្ញុំសូម
Response. I do not recall the exact date, but before I left my home village, the issue of defrocking monks had happened even before the Lonol soldiers came in my village. And I mentioned that in my testimony before the investigators as well. That village was the place where there were confrontation between the two soldiers. During the daytime, the Lonol soldier control of the village, but during the night time, the revolutionary forces came in. But the issue of defrocking the monk took place even before the Lonol soldier came in my village. So there had been instances of defrocking monks even before the entry of Lonol soldiers. But then when Lonol soldier came in the village, there were people who enter monkhood as well. But then when Lonol soldiers were defeated, then monks were defrocked again. And this happened even before I joined the revolution.
And do you know who ordered these monks to leave the monkhood?
Response. At the time, I did not know who ordered the defrocking of monks. But the revolutionaries who were in charge of my village were the one who ordered the defrock of monk. But as to whom did he receive the order from, I did not know. Actually, what I knew was that it was the order from the person in charge of revolutionary movement in my village.
And did this person say why the monks had to be defrocked?
Response. At that time, I did not know why monks were defrocked. At that time, people dare not protest against the order. And if monks at that time had to be defrocked, then nobody would dare protest against this. And it was the decision by other group of people, and many other people simply agree to that. They did not protest at all, and it was the decision by the other group of people, and I did not know.
Thank you. I will come to the last topic of my questions. And for this, I would like to know when you got married. Was it during the Democratic Cambodia regime?
Response. Concerning my marriage, I met my family, my wife, and I was studying along the Cambodian-Thai border. I did not have a wedding inside the country. Actually, I got married somewhere along the Cambodian-Thai border.
Can you specify the time? Was it before or after 17th of April, 1975?
In short, my wedding took place along the Cambodian-Thai border when I left Phnom Penh and took refuge along the border, and it was sometime in 1982 or 83. And at that time, I was around 30 years old, and my wife was about 27 years old.
Thank you, Mr. Q. And I have no further questions. And thank you very much for answering all my questions. I wish you a safe journey back home.
The President, thank you. I would like to now turn to my fellow colleague on the bench. If you have any question to put to the witness. Judge Lavange, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have a small question. Witness, as far as you know, during the period of Democratic Cambodia, were there identical departments to the department in which you worked at the Ministry of Propaganda? Were there other departments that were in charge of listening to international news and to transmit this news?
Response. Section different from my ministry. I did not know whether or not there were other such departments, but within Ministry of Propaganda and Information, there was one section dedicated to listening to the international news broadcast on radio. So information we transmitted to this section. I did not know what they dealt with this information, but they verify against the news they heard from the international radio forecast. That's what I knew. They used my information to verify against information received by that department.
So if I understood correctly what you said today, it seems that this work required specific equipment and people who had specific skills. So let me repeat my question again. So as far as you know, was there any other kind of equipment of this kind available in Phnom Penh? And were there other people who had the same skills? Or as far as you know, was your department the only one able to carry out such services?
It's only my observation. I did not know the details of the work, but what I knew was that they sent me one machine, which was the teleprinter. They sent it to my department to get it fixed. So it was my assumption that there could have been a place which also handled this task. That's why there was an existence of such machine.
And at any moment in your work at the Ministry of Propaganda, did you become aware of ties that might have existed between the Ministry of Propaganda and, for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. Before, I did not know the relationship between these two ministries. But before I left Phnom Penh, there were people, 2 or 3 people sent from Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take our place. Those 3 personnel were sent from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they were attached to my department. That was before I left Phnom Penh.
I suppose that among this international news that you listened to and that you retransmitted, some of this news might have involved statements made by Khieu Samphan when he would speak to foreign heads of state, for example. So do you know if your department transmitted such news to the state presidiums under Khieu Samphan?
Response. As for the foreign languages, I only prepared the printout in order to be sent out, but I did not know about the content of the printout. But I did work on the preparing of the tapes to be sent out and broadcast, but I did not know the content.
Dernière question.
Last question. Mr. Witness, in the course of your duties at the Ministry of Propaganda, did you ever hear anyone mention the name Uyun?
Response. I worked at the Ministry of Propaganda, and of course I heard of the name Hu Yun. But I never saw his face. I never knew about his position. I knew of the name Hu Yun, Hu Nam, and Kieu Sampon. I heard of those names even before I arrived in Phnom Penh. And I did not see him even if when I was in Phnom Penh. That's all.
Et quand vous avez entendu
And when you heard of Mr. Uyun, were you told that Mr. Uyun was a traitor?
Response. Whether Hu Yun was announced a traitor, I did not know. There was no announcement as for Hu Nam. But I did not know that whether he was a traitor or the mistakes that he committed. I simply only learned of his name, but I never saw him or met him.
avez-vous entendu
Did you hear anyone say that some members of the Ministry of Propaganda had committed suicide?
Response. I could not respond to your question as I cannot recollect it. At that time, I think I heard of some news regarding that, but I am uncertain as I cannot recall it correctly. So I cannot respond to your question, Your Honor. That is the truth. I could have heard about it, but I cannot recall it properly. So for that reason, I declined to respond to your questions due to my poor recollection of the event.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le témoin.
Thank you, witness. I have no further questions for you.
President, thank you. The chamber would like to give the floor to Nuon Chia's defense team to put questions to this witness. You may proceed. Sonarun. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good afternoon, Mr. Kieu Ain. My name is Sonarun. I am a defense counsel for Nuon Chia. I have a few questions for you. Referring to document E3/438, that is the written record of interview you made with the investigators of the OCIJ. The question was in regards to the Congress that you did not participate, and whether any important leaders participated, including Kieu Sampon or Nuon Chia. Response. For main Congress, I could not speak for certainty regarding whether many leaders participated, as I personally never attended those major congress. However, at my ministry, even sometimes for major meeting or congress, I did not participate. At that time, I was an ordinary person, so I had to stay close to my work during major congress or meeting. Only those who were party members or members of the Youth League would attend those congress or meetings. I rarely attended such a meeting. Thank you. My next question. During the time that Hu Nam was working there, you said you did not know his status within the party, and the meeting was led by Hu Nam, and after Hu Nam's arrest, Jun Yat took over. And later on, Nuon Chea took over Jun Yat. My question is the following. You said that Nuon Chea replaced Jun Yat. The word replaced, as you said, does it mean he replaced Jun Yat within the capacity of controlling the ministry? Because Jun Yat herself was the minister, and Nuon Chea came to replace her. So, did he come to replace her as a minister of that ministry? That is the Ministry of Propaganda? Or what position was he held when he replaced Jun Yat? Response. My knowledge regarding the replacement was simply that when Hu Nam was removed, Jun Yat came to replace him, and she came every day, morning and afternoon. And during the meetings, people were called to attend the meetings with those from the education section. And later on, Jun Yat was not seen to come to work, and then there was Nuon Chea. So it means Nuon Chea came to replace her, but I did not know for sure in what capacity. Only after the disappearance of one, another one came to replace. And I could not say for sure regarding the upper arrangement for the replacement. So there were these three stages: Hu Nam, Jun Yat, and Nuon Chea. But by that time, under the management of Jun Yat, the two ministries were combined into one. And after Jun Yat stopped, I saw Nuon Chea. And this is my response to clarify your question. Thank you. Question. While Hu Nam was still there, and later on he was removed, Was the management remained the same? I mean, he came to work day and morning and afternoon. And when Nuon Chea came to work in place of Junjat, did he come to work regularly, or he only came briefly and returned? Response. When I think back, the work activities did not change. I did not know how busy they were at the upper level. For instance, he could come one day to look briefly and left, or next day he would come again. So I could not tell you regarding his detailed work activities. As I said earlier, I only noticed the change in the food ration. So the work and the living condition did not change much. That is all. Questioned. After Hunam was arrested, and those who attended the training with me were subsequently arrested, the words that you used, the arrest of Hunam and those who attended the training with you, what do you refer to or mean by the word arrest? In the legal meaning of the word arrest, it means the person would be handcuffed or tied, or that person would be taken away with an arm. Did you see with your own eyes how Hunam was arrested? Response. I did not witness the arrest of Hunam. However, he was taken away, and after several days of his disappearance, people wondered where he was. So, actually the word arrest was used before that time. Some people would use the word be removed for re-education. Of course, when they came to arrest someone, they would not say they come to arrest that person. They do not use the word arrest. But it means that person would be sent for re-education. And you can refer to the legal meaning of the word, but in practice, they never use the word arrest. But of course, it means that when people was removed from one place to another, during that regime, it refers to that person being arrested. But I could not tell you whether during that process the person would be tied or not. But whatever definition you give to the word arrest, that is for your own discretion. Because sometimes people were sent for re-education and they were taken away, and they never used the word arrest in that sense. And later on, after the disappearance, people would speak to one another that that person was arrested or had been arrested. And that's my understanding of the word arrest. But maybe you need the exact word arrest in the judgment or something which is beyond my capacity. Thank you. My next question is the following. You stated before the OCIJ that Hunam's confessions were shown that he was linked to the CIA and that you yourself saw. The question is whether you yourself saw the confession of Hunam when you spoke before the investigator of the OCIJ regarding that confession. Recently, you said during the training with Junyat made an announcement regarding the background of Hunam. So my question once again is, did you see the confession of Hunam? Response. Let me clarify the question again. I believe I already responded to this question. I did not see the confession in writing, or nor I ever held that confession. But yes, there was an announcement about the confession of Hunam, but not the actual confession. I never held his confession in my hand. You were asked during that interview and you responded that there was a conflict between the East and the Southwest people, and you also said that you did not know who arrested whom, but usually the people from the East were not spared and they would be replaced by the Southwest. Can you tell the chamber why that was the case? And if you know clearly regarding such a replacement, was the order coming from what level, or whether the true zones agreed for the replacement? Response. I already stated that in that written record of interview. I could not know about the arrangement at the upper level, but for the actual situation on the ground, as I observed, when I participated in the first technical training, many of the participants were from the East. I did not know what happened later on at the upper level or what kind of decision was made, but after Hunam was removed, those who attended the technical training with me were also removed. And some of the existing forces, even before me, they also had been removed. And when Junyat took over, the people who were sent to me for training were from the Southwest. They were all from the Southwest. So I thought that when the East were gone, then the Southwest came. But I could not tell you for sure what kind of decision was made at the upper level. I only saw you of what happened. Thank you. Since your testimony this morning, you said the 3-stage replacement from Hunam to Junjat and to Nuon Chea, that Nuon Chea took over in late 1978 until the arrival of the Vietnamese. My question is the following. Before Nuon Chea replaced Junjat, did you know what position he held? Response. Before Nuon Chea took over the ministry, I knew that Nuon Chea was a person after Pol Pot. Of course, I did not see any document, but I learned it through friends who were party's members or members of Youth League. They spoke about that. But I did not learn it through any of the training. And I also learned of the fact that he was a member of the standing committee. But once again, I did not learn that through a study session, but I listened on the radio and I learned that information. Thank you. Besides knowing that he was member of a standing committee, did you know he held any other position? Response. As far as I knew, although I was uncertain, is that he represented the National Assembly. That's all I knew, in addition to his role as a member of the Standing Committee. At that time, I myself did not know how the National Assembly was functioned. I did not know about the role of the government at the time. Thank you. You worked as a civil servant and you are literate. Can you tell us within the hierarchical structure of the democratic Cambodia, can you shed light on that structure? Whether there was a party and then there was a government? Response. I did not know that in details, but what I knew was there was inside and outside the party rank. The popular masses hate to follow the instructions prepared internally by the party. That's all I knew, but I did not know more than that. Because at that time, sometimes meetings were held amongst the members of the Youth Leagues, and as I was not a member, I was not allowed to attend. And that also applies to the party's members' meeting, and I was not a member of the party, so I was not allowed to attend such a meeting. So I belong to the masses group. And the people in the masses did not play any major role. Only the party's members and the members of the youth leagues would be assigned responsibility or leading role. And that is all. Thank you. You provided your responses to the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges, and this morning to the prosecution and to the civil party lawyers that Nuon Chea replaced Jun Yat at the Ministry of Education and Information. And you said that Nuon Chea was the Minister of Propaganda, Information and Education. How did you learn that? Did you hear it through other people and you just repeated it? Response. I could not really understand your question. Because I already informed you that Nuon Chea replaced Jun Yat at the Ministry of Propaganda and Information, and Jun Yat was the Minister of Education. But after Hu Nam was replaced by Jun Yat, the two ministries combined into the Ministry of Education and Information. And later on, Nuon Chea replaced Jun Yat. So I do not quite understand your question. Counsel, the point that I'd like to ask is that as a Minister of Propaganda and Information, it was Hu Nam, and later on, Jun Yat combined this information with the Ministry of Education rather. So it means when Nuon Chea came to replace Jun Yat, Nuon Chea took charge or took over these two ministries, as did by Jun Yat. Does it mean that Nuon Chea was the Minister of Education, Propaganda and Information? Was there such a title or position in the official document, or did you hear it through other people that Nuon Chea was the Minister of that information of that ministry? Response. Nuon Chea came to replace Jun Yat, and Jun Yat returned to her ministry. I did not see any official document as stating Nuon Chea was the minister, but that ministry was the Ministry of Propaganda and Information. So we saw Nuon Chea came to replace Jun Yat, but there was no official document for the replacement or the takeover of that position. So as the information was known as the ministry was known as the Ministry of Propaganda and Information, we simply referred to that. President, thank you, Counsel. Counsel, do you have more questions? The time is appropriate for an adjournment. We will resume this questioning session tomorrow. Council, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, witness. I'll put more questions to you tomorrow. President, I would like to give the floor to Judge Cartwright so that he can pass on some information to the party. You may proceed.
Yes, thank you, President. The President has asked me to give an indication to the parties concerning our wish to hear oral argument on a particular matter. I am doing this because the communications have only recently arrived in Khmer and the President has not had a chance to consider them. The current situation is that Ieng Sari is unwell and remains hospitalised. The trial chamber is currently taking steps to obtain expert medical opinion concerning his diagnosis and prognosis. That is what the likely time period is going to be to enable him to recover. The trial chamber is very grateful to the Ieng Sari team's willingness to waive his right to participate while certain witnesses give evidence, but there is an immediate matter which highlights the longer-term issue that we cannot keep going just having some witnesses and not others. That would not be a very logical and useful way to proceed. And this has arisen in relation to witness 428, whom the Ieng Sari team initially indicated a willingness to waive the accused's right to participate. The defence team has now indicated that it wishes to revoke that waiver, and this, as I said, emphasises the longer-term issue of how we are going to proceed from this point on. Obviously, it is the trial chamber's ultimate decision as to which witnesses we hear and in what order, but we will value the submissions of the parties concerning the more fundamental issue, and that is what steps we should now take to proceed with the trial. Now, I'm not going to put out any suggestions, any of the matters that the trial chamber have been discussing already, because we wish to have an open discussion on this matter. And I do note that very recently the Ieng Sari team has made a formal filing supported by the Khe Sampan team. So obviously all parties are beginning to think through how we are going to proceed in the future. Therefore, the trial chamber has decided to hear oral argument in public on the various matters that Ieng Sari's illness bring to the fore. And this will be scheduled after the completion of the hearing of the evidence in relation to this witness, and subject to the President's agreement, probably preferably before the next paragraphs from the closing order are read that are relevant to this trial segment, or rather to trial 002/001. Now, the scheduling, the precise time that argument might begin is a little unclear at the moment. It will begin as soon as the parties are ready after the conclusion of the evidence of this particular witness. President, I hope I've covered in general what you wished me to say.
Yes, that is clear enough, Judge. The President, the time is now appropriate for the adjournment for the day. We will adjourn now, and the Chamber will resume tomorrow on Tuesday, starting from 9 o'clock in the morning. The Chamber will continue to hear the witness before us, and we will begin by the question by the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Mr. Kieu Ain, your testimony has not yet come to an end. The Chamber invites you to come to testify again tomorrow morning. Court officer is instructed to facilitate the transport and accommodation for the witness and have him back to this courtroom before 9 o'clock in the morning. Security guards are instructed to bring the co-accused, Mr. Kieu Sampon and Mr. Nguyen Chia, back to the detention facilities and have them back to this courtroom tomorrow morning before 9 o'clock. The court is now adjourned.
Gaucho.